Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Now, it's probably a little hard for you to see, but I finally made good on a promise I made for 1,000 Twitch subs. I got my hair dyed. Now, I didn't bleach my hair, so it's not a very bright color, so it's like a purplish that kind of blends into black, or it's like the black hair, or my brown hair is like toned purple. So it's a little bit hard to see. You can kind of see it when you go into the scalp a little bit more. But also, if you just look at like the color of my head to like the rest of the hair on my face, you could just kind of see the contrast right there. So I finally made good on that. It wasn't that bad. It took like 45 minutes to get this done or something. It was 30 minutes sitting there. Then they had to wash my hair. Then they cut it a little bit and whatnot. So yeah, I finally made good on that promise. As for the questions we have here, we don't have a whole huge amount of them on the forum. So it means we're going to have time for some more Twitch chat related questions. So Twitch chat looks like I've got about 11 questions on the forum, so hopefully you're prepared to ask some decent ones when I get through all of those. Save them till after I say, hey, I'm ready for them, though, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to see them. Anyway, guys, let's get started with the questions over on the forums. All right, so let's see the first question. Hello there. I'm making Oreo chocolate chip cookies this weekend, so have one to accompany this question. Wow, you're so generous. That one cookie. Thank you. Thank you so much. Throughout Heavensward, I've been part of raid groups with roster and scheduling issues. It seems very difficult to make a time to work for 8 people. Yeah, which is why they're not exactly jumping at the opportunity to make 24-man hardcore raids. In your experience, have you seen groups have more success with fewer or longer raid times or more shorter raids? So you mean less hours per day but more days per week, or more hours per day, less days per week? Man, I've done both. That's a tough call, man. It's honestly, that's different per group. Like, some groups, people have all the time in the fucking world. And some groups, people work, you know, a standard 9 to 5, plus they want to spend time with their kid or their spouse or their family on weekends. So I feel like 3 raid nights is generally the nice kind of medium, regardless of what kind of schedule you run. Obviously, some people have time for more, some people have time for less, but 3 raid nights is a nice comparable medium. 2 lockouts for 3 raid nights is like the casual pace to go, or like your standard pace to go for your average raid group. Maybe 3 lockouts 3 nights a week would be a slightly better one, but some people can't dedicate 5 hours to raiding a night, and then on top of that they want to go and have social lives on weekends. So I feel like that seems about right. 2 or 3 lockouts per raid night with 3 nights a week minimum. 4 nights would be preferred, because when you only do 3 nights, what ends up happening is you end up trying to do maybe like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you have 4 days where people are just kind of out doing other things. And when they come back on Tuesday, sometimes they just play like shit. So I don't know, maybe having them a little bit more spread out, like a Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, or a Thursday, Friday, Monday, or something like that might work a little bit better for people who are trying to progress. The less times you have like a 4-day break, the better for progression, in my experience. But yeah, 2 or 3 lockouts, 3 raid nights a week, I'd consider is a nice happy medium where it kind of meets in between. All right, on to the next one. Hello. I'm doing my Minstrel Challenge minimum item level event again on my birthday month, and it has inspired me to throw some questions at you. Oh, I remember you telling me about this. Yeah. You were trying to do all of the, you called it the Minstrel Challenge, but I think you were trying to do every single trial in the game that was available at minimum item level, which is, by the way, probably a lot of fun. Have you participated in some sort of community event for any game for fun or otherwise was for the player base itself? So I guess that's kind of hard to determine. Like, for fun, I mean, I play games. Like, obviously, I play them for a living, but I try to play the games I'm having fun playing. So that's kind of, it's more about what kind of event it is. Like, my favorite event that I've attended is definitely still the play that was put on for Final Fantasy IX's, the Final Fantasy IX play recreation that a Stage Reborn did. I Want to Be Your Canary, that one. That was definitely, like, I didn't need to go to that. There's no, I didn't have to, but I was asked, and I was like, that sounds really cool, so I'm just going to go to that. And that was awesome. I'm looking forward to more of their productions going into the future. So, yeah, I mean, I've been to them. And then in Final Fantasy XI, there were a ton of community events that I was a part of, but I can't remember any of them very in particular. I mean, the thing is, everything was scheduled in Final Fantasy XI anyway, so it's kind of hard for me to just, kind of separate the two between like things that were just normal events or things that were community events. Does the difficulty of 14 and the variety of things to do in 14 get controlled by the community, or can it be controlled by you as an individual? I'm not sure I understand what the question is. 14, everything has a set difficulty, and then if you want, you can self-impose difficulty, things like trying to do a fight with one healer, or, you know, trying to do 8 tanks, or minimum item level, or, you know, soloing an old fight. You know, those kind of things are controlled by the individual, but the way the fights are designed are in a very controlled manner, and they're designed with a certain difficulty in mind. The rest is up to you. Do you have minimum item level story? No, because every time I want to do minimum item level, no one wants to do that shit. My favorite so far this... Okay, well, you got your story here, but I think I covered the questions, so let me make sure I got time for all the other questions here, but thank you for your questions. All right, on to the next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. This is Final Sim. And welcome to my question on your channel. Whew. I didn't actually mean to go for that long, but I decided to do it anyway. First of all, I finally beat Zervin Extreme thanks to your guide and that of Miztex. Awesome. You're an awesome man. Love your stream and YouTube channel. Hope it's the best for you to years to come. I appreciate that, my good sir and or madam. On to my question. Is it possible to play Final Fantasy XI? Yeah, absolutely. If I could recommend a server, the Asura server is the official Reddit server. So it's the best server to try and find people who are still somewhat actively playing the game. Most of the content in that game, like if you wanted to go back to 11 and just play it for the story, honestly, you could solo all that with the trust NPCs. You don't even really need any other players to get that done. And I'd say as much as it's an old game, if you don't mind the story being like having no voice acting and just being all text, and the graphics, of course, being dated as it is a pretty old game, I'd say it's still a worthwhile thing to do, at least for that experience. Kind of so you can say I played through the main story of every Final Fantasy game. But yes, you can still play it, buy it on Steam. I highly recommend going to the Asura server if you plan on playing at max level. And you should be absolutely okay. There's also the mobile version that's coming out. They're even remaking one of the mobile games for Final Fantasy XI. One of my favorites is Final Fantasy XI Grandmasters. Released back in April of 2015 in Japan, never coming over to the States probably, but they're re-releasing it as Grandmasters 2.0 with a bunch of improvements. So I'm really curious. I'm absolutely planning on hitting that up and seeing if I can play that on a... and make some videos on Final Fantasy XI Grandmasters 2.0, because I love 1.0. In fact, I just played 1.0 not too long ago, and it's fantastic. So yeah, second question: if people love Warrior that much and everyone believes they can mitigate damage even better in Paladin Dark Knight, why don't people play parties that have 2 Warriors? So there's a handful of reasons. One, they're good, but utilities don't stack. So like Storms, you don't get 2 Storms Path. Maybe if you have 2 different targets, you get 2 different Storms Path. You don't get 2 Storms Eyes. So basically you end up one takes the eye, one takes Path, and then it's whatever. But with Dark Knight, you know, you're bringing an additional 10% magic mitigation, or with the Paladin, you're bringing Divine Veil, or you're bringing the Clemency, or you're bringing Rage of Halone for the strength debuff. So it's all about not stacking utilities or stacking debuffs, and on top of that, limit break generation. Generally, job stacking is something you try to avoid specifically because of limit break generation. So I've seen a bunch of people run 2 Warriors when limit break isn't even a factor for a fight, like when you're probably not even going to hit LB3 in a fight, like in A9 Savage or something like that. But for the most part, yeah, you generally just you don't stack all that frequently, but I've seen it. It's not like people don't do it. As soon as LB is not really a factor, then who cares, right? If you don't need the magic reduction, if you don't need Divine Veil, yeah, you're gonna generally push more with 2 Warriors. So there you go. I mean, it's not like it's something that isn't done. And by the way, you say 1 in Defiance, 1 in Deliverance. I'm not gonna lie, even if you have 2 Warriors, there's a good chance that they're both running Deliverance, in all honesty. All right, on to the next one. Hello, Happy. No question roulette this week. Sad face. Sad face. So yeah, I remember you actually came to me during the week and told me to read this kind of off camera. Unfortunately, I did tell you when you did that when I read these questions, I don't like to read them ahead of time. Sometimes I glance over them to see if there's like a spam thing or if there's like something that's super inappropriate, but I never actually read through the questions until I go live for Mondays with Mr. Happy. So TLDR, how to deal with or end the hostility towards new players in Final Fantasy XIV for good. I was going to say TL don't answer, or too long don't answer, or whatever, but you don't. The bottom line is, most people, normal human beings, love new players in an MMO because they see their MMO growing and they see these new players getting into the game, and they're a fresh new soul that can be taught and can learn and can be improved. Whereas there's that very vocal minority that treats them like shit. So there's no way you're going to take that minority and wipe them out. So, I mean, I don't even need to read necessarily the story. I'm just telling you, I see a lot of horror stories on Reddit, on these forums even, like when people ask questions. I very rarely see that. Like, and I see a large portion of the community on a pretty regular basis. So it's something that you see on occasion. It's just not super common. It's never going to be wiped out. That's just not, online. You can't wipe out negativity on the internet. It just can't be done. So, unfortunately. All right, on to the next one. Hello, Hapsta. Hey, what's up? First time asker, long time ghoster. Oh, you ghosting? Is this why I always get picked off by the friggin' Hanzos in Overwatch? Is it you? It's you. It is you. Okay, I haven't played Overwatch in ages. So I give you a free cross-class slot for all jobs. Swiftcast. I don't know. Invigorate for my tanks. I don't know. Something like that. I've done most of the content in the game, and I find it pretty easy. Even Savage tier. I go into extremes in Savage and then become completely bored for the fact that the fight is easy, but people are saying it's the hardest content. Just want to know, is it just me, or is the reason the endgame content is so hard is not because of the content itself, but what makes it hard is the universal variable being played? I mean, that's, once again, that kind of is the same answer as the last one. Of course, the more people you have playing the game, the greater variance you have in the skill base of the people who play. I will say this, though, Final Fantasy XIV does very little to encourage people to try to play better. People pretty much hit the mentality where, well, this is how I play and whatever. Like, I see that. That's one thing I see more often in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, people just say, nope, that's it. That's as hard as I'm willing to try. If I can't beat it at that level, I refuse to improve anymore. I see a lot of that, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's not... It's difficult for them because it's just difficult for them. It's the same thing for, like, you know, you're really good at something, right? And then you have a friend who's really good at this different thing. Let's say you're really good at tennis. He's really good at basketball. You know, so you're playing tennis, whatever. And then you go to try play basketball and you're like, wow, this is so hard. I can't even dribble the ball. And he's like, dribble the ball, so easy. It's kind of like that. And then he does the other way around and he can't get the forearm or the back or the backhand on any of them, the forehand or the backhand on any of them. And it's the same thing. You know, you're good at some things and other people aren't as good at them. And also, a lot of people aren't willing to try and improve because they feel kind of embarrassed for not being great at it in the first place. So it is. I mean, the answer to your question is yes, but it's a little bit more in-depth than that. All right, on to the next question. Good morning. It's afternoon for me now, but you know what? Good morning. Good morning. So, I've invited a few friends to try out the game, and they all love it. Not all continue to play as much as me, but they all play it just for the story, and some just to do all the new content and wait for the next patch. Recently, I invited another friend to try out Final Fantasy XIV, but this friend complains that they couldn't grasp the game, and that having so many abilities was too much for them when the current MMO they were playing only has a few. Do you think 14 is too hard for newcomers? No. But I think that there's a combination of two things. One, the early game is so underwhelming. It does very little to teach you about playing the game. Yes, we have the Novice Hall, but it doesn't do a whole lot to teach you how to play efficiently. All it does is, it's pretty much, the Novice Hall you can put in any MMO and it would be exactly the same, and all it does is teach, like, basic terminology of MMOs. It's like, you don't even have to make that a Final Fantasy XIV thing. And then on top of that, then you get, like, at some point it hits you where all your skills kind of just come together into this like mishmash of abilities, and you end up like pressing 22 abilities in the first like 12 seconds of the fight, and you're just like, whoa, okay, now I got to keep track of all that for the rest of the fight. So it goes from, there's not a very good transition from going from being a new player to being a seasoned player. It's just not a very smooth transition, even with the class quest every 5 levels and the job quest every 5 levels. It's just not super well done, unfortunately. I don't think it's too hard, but having that many buttons is definitely overwhelming for some people. And like, that's going back to the old thing. That's why some people hit a certain point and they just don't want to improve anymore, because there's so much in front of them that there's a lack of interest to really absorb all of it. But mechanically, the bosses aren't as bad as other games. So that's the trade-off you make. The bosses are a little easier, but performing on your job is a little bit harder. So it's definitely a balance that some people aren't a fan of. They'd rather the jobs be simple, but the bosses be more mechanically difficult. And maybe we'll get a little bit more mechanically difficult things in certain odd-numbered patches going into the expansion. All right, next one. Hi, Mr. Happy. Greetings from your best Italian fan. Were there any Italian fans that would like to step up and claim that this man is a liar? Feel free to do so. So here's some real pizza, not the pineapple one. Oh, thank God. If you made a pineapple pizza joke, I was gonna... Anyway, moving on. So my question is more of an advice. So you're asking for advice. Okay, let's see if we can do this. I did all of A Realm Reborn and Heavensward content as a tank. Then I hit level 60 and fell in love with Black Mage. I still feel very comfortable as a Dark Knight, and I even invested some more in Scripture on him so I could keep my already geared class. Or should I follow the heart? Oh, you. Sorry for the philosophical question, but 14's your first MMO. I don't think it's philosophical at all. Saying follow your heart doesn't make it philosophical. I would just like to point that out. I would say follow your heart in this one. Like, that's the thing about Final Fantasy XIV. Because you can play every job on a single character, the investment level of getting into another job is somewhat a little bit more approachable, depending on how you look at grinding secondary jobs in this game. So, I mean, first of all, unless you're doing hardcore raiding, I don't see why you can't just play whichever one you feel like playing at the time. If you need to pick one for raid, follow your heart. If you're just playing the game casually and you just want to, like, do content, then switch it up occasionally. There's no reason why you have to only go into dungeons or extreme primals or 24-mans as a single job. You know, that's the flavor of life, is variety. So I would say just play both. All right, on to the next one. Hey, Haps, hope you're feeling more refreshed today. I'm feeling all right. I finished all my coffee very quickly. This is just a mug at this point with a little bit of coffee there at the bottom, but, you know, what's whatever. Simple 2 questions this week for you, my man. All right, simple. Let's see what they are. All right, 1, how did you enjoy episode Gladiolus? So episode Gladiolus, gameplay-wise, was good. I would have liked more story, although there was at least a decent amount of background and banter that kind of builds upon the 2 characters. Core especially is a character I would love to see more about without having to go play, like, King's Knight, or not King's Knight, King's Tale, the like, short beat 'em up that they have. I don't even know if Core is in that, actually. I know that I know some of the other characters. I don't actually know if Core is in that. I don't remember. But the gameplay was fun. For me, the best part of episode Gladiolus was score attack mode. It was just a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun running that over and over again, which is about 20 minutes to run before I got the final achievement there for trying to get over 1,000,000 points. Honestly, I would like that in, like, the Menace dungeons. The problem is Noctis's gameplay isn't really as well designed for something like score attack, because Gladio, it's very clearly designed from the ground up to have that score attack mode in mind. But it was good, and I also like the 30 minutes that came free in Chapter 13. And it is... Chapter 13 verse 2 is kind of weird, because you can go to it from the main menu, or you can go to it through the main game. But if you go to it through the main game, then you're pretty much, you don't get to play as Noctis again after that. So what some people do is they get to the very last save point before Chapter 13 and Chapter 13 verse 2 kind of merge, and then they can switch to Gladio and play about 30 minutes of that, or they can go Gladio as soon as possible and skip over Chapter 13 maybe because they don't like it. So some good options there, some good content, but I want to see the next one. It doesn't necessarily need to be longer, but it needs to be meatier. This one was really just more action combat, and looking to see what the next one brings in terms of story and intricacies for Final Fantasy 15. 2, based on the first taste of the story DLC, good, I'm already on that note. How do you think episode Prompto and Ignis will end up being? So we know the reason why episode Ignis is last is because it is the most integral to the happenings of the story, and I have a few theories about what episode Ignis is going to be about. Episode Prompto, though, definitely has a more serious tone. We've seen that. We've seen the scene with him in the snow now in, like, 4 different occasions. So I think it's... We also know that he's gonna play differently because he has a gun. So his combat and the general thing that he's going to be trying... The gameplay itself is not going to be as action-y. Same with episode Ignis. So... It's hard to judge. I would actually like to get some sort of official quote on that of what the primary differences are between the two. Because other than the gameplay style being different, I want to know, is it going to be the same length? Is there going to be like an additional mode like score attack? Which doesn't... I don't know. Maybe there's like a stealth mode or a never get seen mode. I don't know. In one of them. I don't know. I think they'll be okay. But really it's going to be season pass holders that go in there. Some people might buy them separately later, but... It's a tough sale. I think most people will wait for like a Game of the Year edition at some point and just pick them all up at once and then play through the whole thing at once, which is honestly a pretty good idea. Hey guys, you want to see what episode... You want to see an early preview of episode Ignis? You guys want to see an early preview of episode Ignis? There's your early preview of episode Ignis. Alright, on to the next question. Hey, yo, Mr. Happy. Yo, what's up? Not a first time question, but enjoy having stupid smart phone autocorrect for 2 minutes. I don't know what's stupid smart. Is it like where I'm stupid and the phone is smart? Or am I smart and the phone is stupid? Is it both? I don't know. Have some cookies. People wonder why I'm fat. Anyway, I would love to thank you for being the person you are, and your videos have taught me a lot of 14. I hope you continue to be who you are. that's an integral part of this, so thank you. I will do my best on that front. But my question is, this week my computer I used for gaming died. That's an unpleasant experience. I've been looking for a new PC for gaming, and I also do live streams. I've been asking for recommendations. So, since I used to do this in college, my first recommendation is always build your own. I don't do it anymore. I don't spend the time to build my own computers. But through all of college, I helped friends build computers. I built one of my own computers, and it saves money, and you can get, and as long it teaches you to research the parts and how they work together, so you kind of get a little bit of knowledge on that front. Or you take everyone's recommendations, just put all the pieces together. It's honestly not that bad putting a computer together. Seating it is probably the most annoying thing. I mean, CyberPower PC, Origin's kind of more expensive, so that one might be tough for you. CyberPower PC, iBuyPower, CyberPower PC and iBuyPower. I've gotten computers from both of them before. I have both of them, in fact, sitting me right here. The iBuyPower one worked out the box flawlessly. Great. They handled the shipping great. Like, the parts in there could not move an inch, so there was no damage. The CyberPower one I got, and I had to send it back in for RMA. But to be fair, I might have been the cause of that, because when I was cleaning out, when I was getting, they use a special packaging that keeps everything in place. I'm worried I may have pulled something, so it could have been me. It might not have even been the packaging itself. But now the thing is a monster, and that's what I'm running on right now, and it's fantastic. So it depends on how much you want to spend. You're going to be spending several $100s extra if you don't build it yourself. But going directly to one of those companies that sells the more gaming-oriented ones is better than going to like a Dell or an HP or something like that. So I would not recommend doing that. But that's the best I can do. It's been a long time since I've done a lot of research on the individual parts. So unfortunately, the best advice I can give with what I know recently is kind of just to go to these pre-made websites that focus on ones for gamers. All right, next one. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. How you doing? I'm doing all right. How you doing? All right. You answer me next week. All right. I was wondering, do we need more direct or efficient ways of communicating feedback with Yoshi P and the devs? Since looking back at Heaven's Word, a lot of people were left with a bucket of holes leaking water feeling when expectations are put on certain pieces of content to hold themselves through patch only to find disappointment. Now, I know you'd want a test server. Yes. Now, I know you'd want a test server, and I agree that'd be the ultimate solution. Although, I want it with some limitations. So, with that off the table, so do we need a more direct means of communicating feedback? No, I think they generally get the feedback. I mean, without us testing it before it goes live, there's no way to... Like, there's no way we're not going to get the feature and then communicate the feedback later. Like, that doesn't happen unless we get a test server. You know what I mean? They get the feedback. If you watch all the live letters, they go, well, the feedback was this, and we go, yeah. And then sometimes they'll be like, but this or but that, or, you know, we tried this, and maybe this worked, maybe this didn't work. These are the elements that we like. These are the elements that we learned are probably not a good idea. I don't feel like that's an issue. A lot of people just build these pieces of content onto pedestals before they're out. They just create expectations based on nothing. Like, we'll get all the information we need to kind of draw a conclusion, and people will just kind of throw details from their imagination into their expectation of it. Like, all right, let's use Diadem as an example. Diadem, you know, they tell us, you know, the original Diadem is it's still gonna be pretty much intact, the entire zone, you know, the way things work. You know, we're gonna be making it so that events spawn, so you can pretty much assume that's gonna be fates. You know, you're gonna have objectives, which you're going to want to complete in order to get tombstones, so you can get a general gist of what that's going to be. We remember what the objectives were for the old Diadem. And then you have the emergency missions, which they say are going to require, you know, a minimum of 4 full parties in order to kind of do cleanly, and then people go in just kind of expecting it to be face roll, and then it ends up murdering people because people think they don't need to try for it. And then you just have people who, like, Diadem's not even out yet. Let's just say it's not out yet, right? And then they're just like, man, I hope Proto Ultima is just flying around blasting lasers and spawning bosses all the time, and fucking hope that and I hope that, like, there's these crazy events that have, and then they just start telling people that there's gonna be shit like that, and then it doesn't happen, and then they're just like, well, that's disappointing. It was like, well, you literally just started interjecting things that nobody even remotely suggested were gonna be there. And even the data mining that people do, which you're not supposed to do, but people do it anyway, tells people what they can kind of expect, and people just kind of go, whatever. They just create expectations in their heads that are unrealistic most of the time. But however, that doesn't excuse when something doesn't turn out well. But when something turns out well, but not the way someone anticipated, that's a very different story. Like, the new Diadem's not great, but it's better than the old one. That's for fucking certain. So yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with holes in communicating feedback, because they definitely get the feedback. They definitely get it. It's just a matter of how they apply the feedback. That may be where we need to see some sort of improvement. And I think this is the last question over on the forums. Then we can take some Twitch questions. Probably won't be as long of a Monday's video. I've been trying to make these answers a little bit wordier, because, you know, that's something I never do, right? That's a complete surprise. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, Mr. Happy, hello. Hello, you're waving at me. I know what that means. Anyway, I hope you're having a good time waiting for Stormblood. I'm getting to play some games. It's been a good time. Here are my questions. 1, after seeing so many crazy things happening in the Party Finder, do you think Square Enix should include some sort of introduction or tooltip about the terminology commonly used? Well, we talked about this earlier. The Novice Hall does that, but then it's just a bunch of terminology we as players make up. So maybe there needs to be something called like the Player Encyclopedia, where it's like terms that players use more frequently. But, I mean, sometimes people just don't care, or they're stupid. Not, like, actually stupid, like, you know, not like an actual, like, mental illness, but, like, they just lack common sense or reading comprehension skills. And they're just like, well, it said learning, but, you know, I can farm it. You know, I thought this was a farm. They just don't read. There you go. Illiterate. That's probably the best word for us to use like that, for us to use in this case. No, people are never gonna take the time to actually read that Player Encyclopedia is the problem. They either don't care or they're stupid. So that's pretty much where we're gonna go on this one. 2, what is going to be your leveling strategy beginning of Stormblood? And while there are achievements for being first max, I don't give a shit about those. What the fuck do I care about being the first level 70 red mage, first level 70 samurai? What am I gonna get a dev post from Yoshi P? Hey, this guy hit 70 first, and everyone's like, oh, there's an achievement. That's the end. My approach is I have to keep my stream in mind. I have to keep my YouTube channel in mind. My goal is to get to as many new things as quickly as possible, release thoughts or guides on them, specifically the dungeons, the new 2 jobs, as well as getting ready for the primals and the raids entirely. So yeah, I'm either gonna take my monk through 60 to 70 immediately, or I'm going to take Samurai 50 to 70 immediately. Either way, if one happens first, the other one happens second, because they share gear. So I figure it's probably best for me to get the 2 jobs that share gear out of the way ASAP. Third question here. Last one before I move over to the Twitch chat. It seems we're going to start Stormblood with combat changes. It's possible to do something to prepare for those changes? No. We already know what the majority of them are. We just don't know the specifics. We know the cross-class system is going away and being replaced with the cross-role system. We know that they're adjusting skills, removing skills, or consolidating skills to make room for new skills. We know we'll have approximately the same amount of buttons now as we do in Stormblood, although that's including the new abilities that we're going to have. We know that we're going to be getting user interface specific things for different jobs to help keep track of certain cooldowns, or I'm sorry, to keep track of certain job specific mechanics. For example, Enochian is a big one. We know there's going to be changes to the way buffs are maintained, because that's one of the biggest things that creates a gap between the lowest players and the highest tier players. So we know what those changes are, but there's nothing you can specifically do. What are you going to... The closest thing you could do is, because the cross-roll system is going to make it so you don't really need to level classes to get cross-class skills. In theory, we still don't know the specifics of it. Then you... I don't know. Then you just don't level your other classes? I don't know. You can, like, what are you going to just do? Then you're going to be gimped for the next 2 months if you're still playing. You know, it's like, I don't know. There's nothing you can really do. Just keep apprised to what the changes are going to be when they are revealed in May, and that should be the best thing you could do to prepare for it. On that note, though, ladies and gentlemen, that's the last question from the forum. So now Twitch chat, against my better judgment, I'll be taking questions from you guys, so get to it. All right, this is a nice, easy one, and it's one I've kind of been asked before but neglected to answer. I'm just going to answer it now. What do you think a possible Red Mage LB3 will be? Red Mage has never been known for big, flashy nukes. No, but they're known for casting spells very, very quickly. What I imagine it'll be, honestly, is a series of very fast, like, spells being cast in an area. So almost like, imagine if you were to like light off a bunch of firecrackers and they kind of just explode somewhat randomly in a vicinity. Think of it like that, but far more flashier or bigger than that. That's what I imagine it's going to look like for the Red Mage LB3. All right, the next question I have, having played Blade and Soul again and experienced it with easier upgrades for equipment and such, are you considering doing more Blade and Soul streams, or is it back on the back burner again? So I have nothing against doing more Blade and Soul streams. That sponsored stream was as good as I remember Blade and Soul being a while back. I mean, it's only been a couple of days, but that and Elder Scrolls Online are kind of like on my radar right now. I'm working on a few things to see what I need to finish up before I can really dedicate more time to those. But ultimately, I don't see myself ever taking progression in Blade and Soul or Elder Scrolls or any of those other games seriously. So they're kind of just like on occasion things. But right now, I still have Breath of the Wild. I finally made some progress on again today. I'm done with 3 of the 4 Divine Beasts. And I've got some side quests to take care of. Kingdom Hearts 2, I'm grinding off camera right now to try and do some of the more tedious trophies so I can pretty much run through, do another stream of that on Critical to get the Platinum Trophy. I've got the other Kingdom Hearts games on there. I've still got Horizon Zero Dawn if I ever fucking get back around to that. And on top of that, I'm still working on a few things. My goal right now, before Stormblood, is not to find like another MMO to play that entire time. It's like to find things that kind of fill my time. One of the big things is I've done, what is it, 2 sponsored streams in the last 3 weeks. I had Revelation Online and I had Blade and Soul. I want to do more of those between now and Stormblood, because when I do a sponsored stream, it's a big stress reliever in a lot of ways, because when in those lulls between content, as a content creator, it kind of feels like shit. You know, you're like, oh, you know, you either have to make up bullshit ideas, you have to report on every single little thing that happens in order to keep content rolling on your channel. Whereas when I do sponsored things like for East Origins, Revelation, it's like, even if it's a game I've never played before, I just tell people, hey, I've never played this before. Someone wanted to pay me to play it. And you know what? Whatever I think of it, by the end of it, you know, I did what I was supposed to do. Like Revelation, you know, that's why when I post the Revelation video, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to post footage of that for my video instead of, you know, let's just, I don't want to have to say anything else. Whereas Blade and Soul, I would gladly make a video, but they, you know, I'm not doing a sponsored video for them. So the more time I can fill with that in between, the better. Because once Stormblood comes out, good fucking luck getting me to do any sponsored shit for a while. Good fucking luck. But Blade and Soul is good. I'll probably log in again at some point without being sponsored to do it. All right, so the next question I'm going to take is this one. It's pretty long, but that's good for this case. So what is your opinion on the GCD in 14? You guys know I've beaten this question to death. I invited quite a few friends from WoW to play the game, but they're all complained about it being too slow, and I've seen people complain about that online as well. So do you think it's too slow? Do you think they'll ever reduce it? And if not, what do you think they would do to change it? I think they need to start front loading, or at least with 4.0 and Stormblood, they need to front load off global cooldown skills and your 3rd tier combo skill. The problem is you don't get a 3rd tier combo skill to level 26. You don't get that many reasonable off global cooldowns until you're approaching level 50. Like, I understand you can't really front load a whole heap and ton, because then you run into the problem where people don't feel like they're getting stronger as they level up. But they need more of them. Like things like Jugulate and Mug for Ninja, or things like maybe Elixir Fields a little, like Howling Fist or Steel Peak or Shoulder Tackle, like more things like that. And your 3rd tier skill. Monk has a benefit of getting their 1, 2, and 3 skills really, really early because of the way that it chains together. You get Snap Punch and you get Demolish somewhat reasonably early. You just don't get Dragon Kick all that early. So that's why I always enjoyed my low-level Monk experience more than any other job in the game, because it felt the most involved going into even just like the mid-20s as a Monk, as opposed to like the way that tanks or any of the other jobs realistically work. Healers being the only one where you kind of can't just start front-loading off global cooldown skills. Maybe front-load a regen. Get that regen to be down. Get it a few levels earlier, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, it's tough. That's the toughest thing. It's not too slow. It just takes too long before you get to see all the skills put together into something that is actually, that feels like you're chaining skills together and not just doing like it is for the first 26 levels. So that's I totally feel you, and I totally think that's the best way to do it, because they're not going to lower the global cooldown. That would just, the amount of rebalancing for the entire game, like that's beyond what they probably are even considering doing at any point in the game's lifetime. All right, the next question I have here is, crafting and gathering is a huge way to make money in the game. Would you like to see something akin to BDO's X number mob drops give you X amount of gil? Maybe for people that aren't interested in gathering and crafting. Thoughts on maybe why it should be a good or bad idea? I mean, you already get monster drops and you just sell them on the market board. I don't see how that's It's not much different. I mean, people farm deep eye tiers and fleece and a few other things. Yeah, they're not great money, but it's the equivalent of just killing enemies to make money. So I don't know. I don't really see a need to add a second avenue for that. I mean, on top of that, we have clan hunts and regular hunts that give gil. Well, not the A and S rank hunts, but I mean like the ones from the board. And those give gil also. So I don't know. I don't really see a need to add anything else. There was another one that actually wasn't the crafter gatherer one I meant to take, so I'll just segue that into the next one that I saw right down here. Where was it? I just saw another one. Oh, yeah, here it was. In regards to crafters gatherers, I've heard whispers about the possibility of specialized content, aka dungeons, where you can bring them in and you have to, craft items or find items or whatnot. Do you feel like this type of content would entice more players to gather craft, or would we reaming around the level we currently are? No, I don't think. See, here's the thing. Making crafters gatherers more valued does not necessarily mean forcing them into a dungeon. A lot of people I know who play crafter gatherer, they're not trying to get like their own dungeon to go like run stuff, because then you end up having to make it enticing or mandatory enough to the point where they have to do it. And that's not really what you get into crafting and gathering for. Like, I can't think of any other game, maybe other than I guess BDO, where that's how, like, that's kind of like how you treat crafters or gatherers, you know what I mean? Like, you treat them as a combat job almost when you start doing stuff like that. You start giving them content that's comparable to that. Most people who I know who play crafters, you know what their content is? Being richer than everybody else who plays the game. And I don't think you need to force people to be more interested in it, because no matter what, they're like, if they're not into crafting, you can't really get them into it. So maybe something clicks one day and they're more interested in it, but we've all seen what adding gatherer, crafter type content, even just in the diadem, it's done, and it's had negative effects. So I don't know. I'm not big on that idea. I think you can just make crafting more enticing with the items you can make, and you don't need to make actual content for them. All right, this is going to be the last question I take from the Twitch chat right here. Final Fantasy XIV is famous for not being the most innovative, but to implement things right amongst MMOs. What feature from another MMO would you like to see SE expand upon in the future? Having just played Blade and Soul, and this being something that's somewhat in Final Fantasy XIV, but definitely not in the way that I would like to see it. A friggin' training hall. So Blade and Soul has level 50 character boosts now. They're currently on sale for anyone looking to get into the game if you're looking to not level at all. And so it's kind of like the most recent example of a level boost outside of World of Warcraft, or the Chinese version of Final Fantasy XIV, or the Korean version of Final Fantasy instead of Final Fantasy, the Korean version of Final Fantasy XIV. And basically, as soon as I log in, I'm in a training hall, same way World of Warcraft does it. And what does it do? It teaches me all the basics. It's like, okay, you're playing this job, so there's 2 different specs you can go out of your way to learn right here. And this is the first thing you're introduced to. And when you press this ability and then this ability, then you can do this ability 4 times, and it's generally considered to be a good amount of damage. And then if you switch to this spec, this is what this spec's equivalent of that would be. And then eventually what it asks you to do is to get the timing down for all of them, to like show that you have somewhat of a control, or maybe you're good at anti-canceling or something like that, which is animation canceling. It's a popular thing in fighting games. And then it even has, the training hall even allows you to spawn raid bosses or dungeon bosses and practice those specific things you just learned against that specific dungeon boss. And because you're either alone or with a single training dummy, you're never really beasting down the boss. You're just kind of studying what it does and how frequently it does it. And how to understand it. It's not going to teach you the whole thing, but it's going to teach you at least the very bare minimum basics. I want Final Fantasy XIV to have, as they've called it before, an intermediate hall, which gives you... I just want black mages to have some place in the game that goes, dude, that's not how you use Fire 3. I always use the black mage example. Dude, that's not how you use Fire 3 and Blizzard 3. You don't go Fire 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Thunder, Blizzard 3, Blizzard. I just want more. Like, we have the Hall of the Novice. Give me a Hall of the Intermediate, please. That's what I want to see Final Fantasy XIV, is to master that. The Hall of the Intermediate. That is what I want to see. Anyway, that's going to be the last question I take from the Twitch chat. Thank you for your questions today over on the forums, over in the Twitch chat. If you have questions for next week, you can either tune in live and try asking them there, or you can post them over on the Dream Network forums, which is the much more reasonable way to do it. If you're looking for it on the YouTube video, it's in the description, so just scroll down. It'll say, week 141. You click it, you go, you'll ask the question, and you're good to go. I'm going to hang out with my Twitch chat for a few more minutes before I get going for the day and enjoy the rest of this NA Spring Playoff, where TSM is already up 1-0, and I can finish these nachos and drink some water. I'm flubbing up my words all kinds of ways today. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Enjoy the videos that are in the post-video end screen annotation thingy, whatever. Anyway, I'll see you guys on YouTube next week. And until then, take care.